The smile didn't fade, it froze. There was a pause that lasted just a second too long, the kind of silence that feels loud on live television. No one laughed. No one moved. Even the studio lights seemed harsher all of a sudden. "You don't get to say that on my show," he snapped, sharp, final, and completely unscripted. Somewhere off camera, a producer's voice cracked through an earpiece. The audience shifted in their seats. And for the first time all night, the cameras hesitated, drifting just slightly away from the couch as if even they weren't sure where to look. This wasn't supposed to happen. Moments earlier, everything had been polished, rehearsed smiles, carefully chosen words. The familiar rhythm of a friendly late-night exchange. The kind of segment designed to feel relaxed, safe, controlled. But something had shifted. A line had been crossed, and everyone in the room felt it at the exact same time. Andy leaned forward, jaw tight, no longer playing the genial host. Whatever patience he had walked on stage with was gone. Across from him, Meghan sat rigid, eyes locked, expression unreadable, not surprised, not apologetic, just unmoving. The kind of stillness that comes right before a storm. The audience let out a low murmur. Not applause. Not boos. Confusion. In the control room, fingers hovered over buttons. Cut to commercial. Write it out. Someone mouthed. "We're live," like a warning no one needed to hear. Andy didn't back down. He repeated himself, slower this time, as if daring the moment to challenge him. The tone wasn't angry anymore. It was something colder. Firmer. Authority reclaiming space it felt slipping away. Meghan opened her mouth to respond, then stopped. Her smile returned, thinner now, the kind used when cameras are rolling but control is slipping. She tried to pivot, to smooth it over, to reclaim the narrative. It didn't work. The silence came back, heavier than before. A beat too long. Then another. That was when viewers at home felt it, that instinctive pull forward, that gut reaction that says, "Wait. What did he just say?" This wasn't banter. This wasn't entertainment. This was a power struggle unfolding in real time. And as the cameras slowly began to pull away, one thing became clear to everyone watching: this interview wasn't ending the way it was planned. But that was only the beginning. What viewers never saw was the shift that happened before the cameras rolled. Backstage. The atmosphere wasn't celebratory, it was tense. Not chaotic. Controlled. Too controlled. Meghan arrived with the quiet confidence of someone who expected the room to bend around her. No rushing. No small talk. No nervous energy. Just an assumption: this is my space now. Producers noticed immediately. There was a list of preferred topics. A tone expectation. Gentle phrasing. Safe framing. Nothing confrontational. Nothing that challenged the version of events already curated for public consumption. This wasn't unusual, but the firmness was. Andy Cohen clocked it. He'd done this long enough to recognize the difference between nervous guests and protected ones. The latter came armored, not with facts, but with narrative. And tonight, that armor felt thick. On set, the smiles were warm, the greetings friendly. But underneath it all, there was friction. Andy's questions were measured, but intentional. He wasn't there to attack, he was there to host. But hosting meant steering, not surrendering. Meghan answered smoothly at first. Elegant phrasing. Familiar reframes. Every criticism was recast as misunderstanding. Every contradiction softened into context. The audience nodded along, unsure whether they were hearing truth or performance. Andy pressed gently. Then again. Each time, her answers grew tighter. More rehearsed. Less human. Producers exchanged glances. This wasn't flowing the way it was supposed to. The audience sensed it too, the rhythm was off. The laughter landed late. Applause felt polite, not genuine. Something was brewing beneath the surface, something unresolved. Andy shifted in his chair. He asked the question he'd been warned not to ask, not aggressively, not accusatory, but plainly. A question about responsibility. About contradictions. About words that didn't quite line up with actions. That's when Meghan's posture changed. Her smile stayed, but her eyes hardened. The answers became sharper. Defensive. The air thickened. This wasn't conversation anymore, it was positioning. And without anyone realizing it yet, the countdown had begun. Because once control is questioned, even softly, power always reacts. And this time, it reacted live. And then came the sentence that detonated everything. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't dramatic. That's what made it dangerous. Meghan reframed criticism the way she always did, as persecution. As unfairness. As voices that don't want her truth heard. The phrasing was familiar. Polished. Safe. Andy let her finish. Then he leaned forward. Slowly. He didn't accuse her. He didn't interrupt. He didn't raise his voice. He asked one simple question, the kind that sounds harmless until you realize there's nowhere to hide. A question about accountability. A question about contradictions. A question about whether truth still mattered when the story was already sold. The room froze. Meghan blinked. Once. Then again. She laughed, lightly, the kind of laugh meant to deflect. But Andy didn't laugh back. She tried to redirect. Andy followed up. That's when she cut him off. Not sharply. Casually. As if he'd overstepped a boundary she believed existed. And that's when Andy said it. You don't get to say that on my show. The tone was calm, but absolute. The audience gasped, softly. That single sentence did what no viral clip, no commentator, no critic had managed to do in years, it stopped the narrative cold. Meghan stiffened. This wasn't part of the plan. She responded, measured but firm, asserting her position, her experience, her interpretation. But something had changed. The authority in the room had shifted. Andy didn't budge. He clarified. Slowly. Carefully. He wasn't shutting her down, he was drawing a line. This was a conversation, not a monologue. A platform, not a shield. The silence between them grew heavier with each word. The audience could feel it now, this wasn't celebrity banter. This was power being renegotiated in real time. And Meghan didn't like it. Her tone sharpened. Her words tightened. The warmth vanished. That's when Andy stopped pretending this was still entertainment. And that's when live television crossed the point of no return. Andy challenged a contradiction, plainly. No sarcasm. No aggression. Just clarity. Meghan snapped back. The audience reacted audibly this time, not cheering, not booing, but reacting. That low, collective sound people make when they realize they're witnessing something unscripted. Producers froze. Andy repeated the question. Meghan deflected again, this time with visible irritation. Andy leaned in. He didn't raise his voice, he lowered it. That was worse. The contrast was unmistakable now, composure versus control. Question versus narrative. Host versus guest. The audience leaned forward. Meghan accused the question itself of being unfair. Andy responded by reminding her, gently but firmly. That fairness wasn't the issue. Consistency was. That's when the cameras caught it, the flash of anger. Gone was the practiced calm. In its place, frustration. Andy stopped the exchange mid-sentence. We're not doing this, he said. Live. The studio went silent. In the control room, someone whispered, "Do we cut?" Andy didn't wait for an answer. He turned slightly toward the camera, not breaking the fourth wall, but reclaiming it. And just like that, the interview wasn't salvageable. Because the illusion had shattered. Chaos didn't explode, it simmered. Producers debated furiously in hushed tones. Legal risks. Brand damage. Viral fallout. Cutting the feed now might look worse than letting it play out. Andy didn't look back. Meghan sat rigid, arms crossed now. Defensive. Guarded. The control room made the call. End it. The signal flashed. Andy nodded once, almost imperceptibly, and turned back. "We're going to take a break," he said. Not apologetic. Not explanatory. Final. The cameras faded. But the real confrontation was just beginning. Off camera, the tension snapped. Meghan stood first. Her voice was sharp. Controlled, but loud enough. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Andy stood too. No yelling. No theatrics. Just a boundary. "This segment is over," he said. Meghan pushed back, asserting status, optics, expectation. Andy didn't flinch. "This isn't your platform." He replied. "It's ours." Silence. Security approached, discreet but unmistakable. The message was clear. This wasn't punishment. It was consequence. Meghan walked out, not escorted, not dragged, but dismissed. And that distinction mattered. Because power hates being denied. The clip hit social media within minutes. Not edited. Not framed. Raw. Viewers replayed the moment over and over, the pause, the line, the shift. Commentators scrambled. But something strange happened. The narrative didn't stick this time. People saw it. The interruption. The deflection. The entitlement. And more importantly, they saw the pushback. Memes followed. Think pieces lagged behind. For once, the audience decided first. This wasn't about Meghan. It wasn't even about Andy. It was about a moment when truth refused to move out of the way. A reminder that platforms aren't shields. That dignity doesn't shout. And that sometimes, the most powerful thing anyone can say, live, unscripted, and irreversible, is no. Because when narrative control breaks, people finally see clearly. The cameras eventually came back on. The lights reset. The show moved forward. Another segment replaced the silence. Another guest sat where she had been just minutes earlier. To casual viewers, it looked like television doing what television always does, moving on. But something had already changed. Because moments like this don't disappear when the broadcast ends. They linger. They echo. They settle into the public consciousness like a question no one can unhear. What people witnessed wasn't a celebrity spat. It wasn't drama. It was a rare fracture in the illusion, the moment when narrative power didn't get the final word. For years, audiences had been told what to feel, how to interpret, who was right and who was cruel for asking questions. Criticism was reframed as cruelty. Accountability was labeled as attack. And platforms quietly adjusted themselves to accommodate the loudest version of the story. Until one didn't. Andy Cohen didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult. He didn't grandstand. He did something far more disruptive. He refused to move. And that refusal, calm, controlled, undeniable, reminded millions of viewers of something they hadn't realized they missed: boundaries. Not the kind enforced by publicists or contracts. The kind enforced by principle. Because power doesn't always collapse in chaos. Sometimes it collapses in silence, when someone simply says, "That stops here." The internet tried to turn it into sides. Supporters. Critics. Hashtags. Think pieces. But beneath all of that noise was a quieter reaction, harder to spin and impossible to erase. Relief. Relief that someone finally pushed back. Relief that a platform didn't fold. Relief that truth, imperfect, uncomfortable, unsanitized, was allowed to sit in the room without being escorted out. This wasn't a humiliation. It was a mirror. And mirrors are dangerous to people who survive on reflection control. The lesson wasn't about who won the argument. It was about who held the line. Because in a culture obsessed with influence, the rarest form of power is restraint. The courage to say no. The willingness to risk backlash in favor of integrity. The choice to let silence speak louder than spin. Live television didn't just expose a clash that night. It exposed a shift. A reminder that audiences are smarter than they're given credit for. That authenticity still matters. And that no matter how carefully a story is curated, reality has a way of interrupting. And when it does, the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs the mic, for a few seconds longer.